Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to show you guys a new operating system I just installed on my Essential phone. So I installed Lineage OS on my Essential phone, and some of you may have heard of this operating system. It's a custom ROM that's based off of Android, and it is the successor of CyanogenMod, and some of you may have heard of CyanogenMod too. But it's a custom ROM that's been available for a very long time, basically ever since Android started. There's been another custom alternative that's a more open source for people who are interested in a more open source alternative that's focused on privacy and being able to unlock their device and be able to do more with it. And the CyanogenMod has been available for Android devices for a very long time, but they stopped in 2016, and the successor is called Lineage OS. So for all intents and purposes, Lineage OS is the continuation of CyanogenMod. So it's an operating system that's very similar to Android, with a few minor differences, I would say. So I'm going to start up this phone for you guys. It is very similar to Android, and actually the steps I had to do to get Lineage OS onto this device, it wasn't too easy. I spent basically all night trying to do that. So there's a few quirks that you had to do. Actually, I can show you guys right now. So if you hold the power button and the volume down button, you can go into the fast boot mode of this phone. Let me show you guys that. Okay, so this is fast boot mode, and you can see the device state here says unlocked. So that means I have an unlocked bootloader right now. So initially, most phones, they come with a locked bootloader, and you have to unlock it manually through fastboot and ADB. So once you do that through your computer, there's instructions online. I just followed those instructions, and I got this device state unlocked, and then I had to flash a custom recovery image onto here. So I'm going to select recovery so you guys can see what that looks like. But there's a custom recovery image that you flash onto here, and then from there you can update and install ADBs. Alright, so it should boot into the custom recovery image, and from here, you can go to apply update, apply from ADB, and then now it says it's ready to sideload an image. And here's where I would sideload the Lineage OS and the Google Apps images. So I think the latest Lineage OS release based on Android 10 is like 17.1 or something like that. Just came out earlier this month. So I sideloaded that onto here, and then you have to sideload a bunch of custom G apps onto it as well. Since Lineage OS does not come with the Google Play Store or Google Apps, you have to sideload those separately. So I did that as well, although I ran into some other issues with that. Get into that later on. But here's what the recovery image looks like, and this is the menu I had to go through. So yeah, this is apply from ADB. Go back. Of course, factory reset. I had to do that before I did any of this. And unlocking the bootloader actually erases all the data anyways. And these are a few more advanced options. But yeah, that's basically what I had to do. I had to jump through a few hoops to get it working on my Essential phone. But I think I got it working now. So I can show you guys the boot screen, because honestly, interface-wise, it isn't too different from Android 10. So yeah, there's this warning here that I know it's there, but it actually doesn't affect the performance at all. It's just a warning that you're using an unlocked bootloader. And this is the Lineage OS kind of boot screen right here. Lineage, there we go. But yeah, other than that, in many other ways, it's very similar to Android. So you see Discover Trust. So the trust system is very unique to Lineage OS. That's something that Android doesn't have. Let me put my pin. All right. So yeah, it looks just like Android 10, doesn't it? So yeah, Lineage OS is based on Android, so of course it looks very similar. Just some of the apps are different. The launcher is different. It uses this launcher called Trebuchet, which CyanogenMod also used. And there's a few more settings, I would say. And of course, there's more flexibility with it. Right? It's completely like open source and doesn't use anything from Google. So if you don't want to be tied to Google, then Lineage OS is a good way to go. And yeah, it comes with very few bundled applications, so it doesn't come with any bloatware or anything like that, and it's focused a lot on privacy as well. Okay, so remember how I said that I had some problems installing GApps on this phone. So I did load the GApps image right after I loaded the Lineage OS image, which is what you're supposed to do. But it still didn't work. I didn't have access to Google Play, so I downloaded this Aora store instead. And this is basically, for all intents and purposes, the exact same thing as Google Play Store. So that's how I bypassed that problem. So yeah, if those of you who have problems installing the Google Play Store onto your Lineage OS device, then go to Aora Store. Then it's an alternative, I guess. You just download the APK from the Aora Store website. All right. So what's different here? Well, not too much is different. As you can see, I installed a lot of my Google apps, Google Play Store apps on here, and then the interface is mostly the same. That's pulling down, you get all this is the same as Android, and then you have the launcher and taskbar right here, and then you pull out from the bottom to have access to all your apps. So that's all the same, not too different. There are a few other settings, so the apps here are also different. So for example, you can notice that a lot of the icons are different, even though they're pretty much the same app. Like that's the same clock app as Android, but the icon looks different. So gallery is pretty much the same as Google Photos. It's just, doesn't use Google. Then calculator, right? The same thing as Google Calculator. Music is your music player here, which is the same thing as Google Play, without using the Google kind of service and ecosystem, I guess. And then messaging is the native messenger here. Your phone app here is your native dialer, which looks exact same as the Android dialer. And then files, it comes with a file system, which yeah, that's here as well. So that's pretty cool. So it comes with a file system, which is here as well. So that's pretty cool. And email, it comes with a native email app that's not Gmail. And then DuckDuckGo is what I installed, but it does come with a native browser as well. So I chose DuckDuckGo because it's also very privacy focused. And then Gdroid, I have this because it's an alternative app store. So there's this other app store called Fdroid, and Gdroid is just like another Google looking F-Droid client. So, look, there's a COVID-19 tracker right here. So yeah, these are all non-Google Play Store apps. These are all open source, completely free apps for you to use. Just a different app store that you can use. So I like using Gdroid as well. You have that as an alternative to the Google Play Store. Camera app's pretty much the same as the Android camera app. So what else is different? Calendar. This is a different calendar app from Google's calendar. This comes pre-installed with Lineage OS. Recorder, it comes with a built-in voice and screen recorder, which is nice. I don't think Android comes with that by default, so it's nice that Lineage OS includes that. And contacts, right? It's pretty much the same thing as Android contacts. Not too different there. And the browser, like I said, so this is not Chrome, right? This is the Lineage OS browser, which is a little bit different. I still prefer Chrome, but if you don't want to be tied to Google ecosystem, then yeah, this is good. But I prefer to use DuckDuckGo actually, even if I don't want to be tied to the Google ecosystem. I think I'd rather go with DuckDuckGo for my browser. But yeah, those are the different apps. Oh, there's Audio FX as well. So this is something else that also comes with Lineage OS. I don't really use this that much, but I guess this is for tuning your speakers. So if you're playing some media, I guess it might be useful. But yeah, that's it. When in terms of custom apps, it doesn't come with too many. It comes with just 18 custom apps. All right, so here we have stock Android 10 and Lineage OS, so you guys can see what's the same and what's different. So network and internet, I think this is pretty much the same. No differences here. Same thing with connected devices. I don't think there's any difference here as well. Pretty much the same. And apps and notifications, let's see. So emergency alerts, oops. Default apps, assistant, yeah, this is pretty much the same as well. Not much difference. Battery, don't think there's much difference here as well, so that's pretty much the same. Let's go to display. I think display is going to be slightly different. So yeah, we both have dark theme, night light, adaptive brightness. So the major thing that's different I see here is live display. So on Lineage OS, you have this extra option here, optimize your screen based on time of day and ambient conditions. So you can change your color profile, reading mode, color calibration, picture adjustment. So there's a few other calibrations and configurations that you can do here on live display. So that's a feature that stock Android doesn't have. So Lineage OS gives us that. Let's go to styles and wallpapers. So you can see here, obviously the icons and styles are a bit different on Lineage OS, right? You can change your font, icon, colors. So you can do that on both. But they are by default different on Lineage OS. This looks a little bit more muted for me. Also on Android, you can only do style and wallpaper. That's it. Whereas on Lineage, you have access to clock. So you can change your clock style as well if you want to have a digital clock, a bubble clock, and an analog clock. So you can change that, and you have grid as well. So you can customize your grid settings for your layout. So you have a 3x3, a 4x5, and a 5x5. So you can't do that on stock Android. And then you have wallpaper as well, obviously. So that's different. And then everything else I think is mostly the same. You don't have wake on plug, tap to sleep. That's a few other options that you have here as well on Lineage. All right, so for display, that was a few other options that you got on Lineage. Sound, see if there's anything different here. I don't think there's anything really different. This is sound is pretty much the same here. Okay, not much different. And then storage, let's see. Yeah, we have smart storage here, and we have a storage manager. I'm not sure if that's the exact same thing, just renamed. But that looks pretty much the same to me as well. Privacy, let's see what's different here. So on Lineage OS, you can see exactly which apps have been using the most permission usage. So you can see in dashboard here, these are the apps that have been using the most or requested the most permissions in the past 24 hours. So that's something that stock Android did not give us. So Lineage OS gives you a bit more control there and a little bit more insight into privacy things. All right, so you see an extra option here in Lineage OS called Trust. So Trust is another Lineage OS feature here that the stock Android doesn't have. It's basically a few other security-related options here. You can see the Android security patches, your platform vendor encryption is enabled. You can restrict the USB. You can restrict your SMS messages. A few other security alerts. So this is just an extra layer of security related options that you have at your disposal. So that's something extra about Lineage, is that it has this extra trust feature. That's something that stock Android doesn't have. So I think for privacy, definitely Lineage OS is a little bit more flexible than stock Android for that. So if you do care about that, I think people might migrate to Lineage OS. All right, location. This is pretty much the same. I don't think there's any difference there. All right, so security, I think this is actually the same. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the same. Let's look at accounts. I think this is pretty much the same as well. Accessibility, I think this is also mostly the same. Yeah. Dwell timing, switch access, yeah. Okay, yep, so nothing too different there either. Let's go to system. So I think we have a few other extra options in Lineage OS here. So I think language and input, that's going to be the same. So gestures, system update, multiple. So you don't have that many options on stock Android, whereas Lineage OS, you have more options here. So buttons, you can control your navigation bar, show arrow keys while typing, invert layout. Power button, you can choose what that does. End call, long press for torch. Volume button, you can choose to wake, answer call, control playback. So you have a lot more customizability over your buttons. And then you have system profiles, which if you go into it, you can have different profiles. And in these different profiles, you can be very granular on which apps settings that you can control here. So everything here, like media, airplane mode, screen brightness, Wi-Fi, location, Bluetooth. So you can control all these settings very granularly in the profiles option. So you might have a different profile for work, for example, right? So you might not have you might not want to have all these enabled during your work if you want to focus on that. Or you might have a home profile, or you might activate many of these things. So it's cool that you have the option to create different profiles for yourself, like you can be totally silent, automobile, or you can add a new one, right? So you can add different triggers for a new profile as well. So that's another interesting feature of Lineage OS. And status bar, right? You can customize this as well. You can change your system icons, right? You can control which ones are being shown, clock position, a lot of clock settings here, battery status, style, percentage, brightness control, auto brightness. So you have more status bar options that you can control here as well. Gestures, I think actually gestures we have this in system as well. Okay, yeah. So this one you do have in stock Android. And then the rest of here, mostly same. Touchscreen, I don't think you have this option. So this one in Lineage OS, you can control the smoothness of the touchscreen, enable grip rejection. And then updater, you can see it says Lineage OS 17.1, which is based on Android 10, just released earlier this month. And you have extra developer options here as well. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about this. I'm not an Android dev. But as an Android dev, I think you do have a few more options in Lineage OS. So for example, ADB over network, I don't think you have that option in stock Android. So these are a few more things that you can do. Again, I'm not going to go over all the extra options here, but there are a few extra options here in Lineage OS for Android devs and Android debugging. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically it. As you can see, most of the features in Lineage OS are very small, minor features, but I think some people may appreciate those extra features, like the privacy options, some extra customization controls over a lot of their like taskbar, the home screen. Basically, I would say it's a more open source, more flexible, and more focused on privacy. So those are the main benefits of Lineage OS and why you might flash it on your phone. So yeah, like I said, it's not a totally straightforward process to flash your phone. It depends on the model, and I ran into a lot of issues with mine and it took me all night. By the way, guys, if you want to know how I installed Lineage OS onto the Essential phone, I already uploaded a video about it. It's a tutorial, and this is basically what I did to get through some of those hoops I talked about. So yeah, I'm going to put that up here, so if you guys are interested, you can check that out. For example, like on Sailfish X, right? So if you want to compare, this is my Sailfish X phone, and the instructions for Sailfish were pretty straightforward. And Yola just gave the instructions. I flashed it, didn't really have any issues, right? Whereas for Lineage, there was a lot of times I had to Google something because something wasn't working. And then I had to find out, oh, okay, like my USB connection didn't work on Windows. I had to use my Mac to actually get it to flash properly. So there's a lot of gotchas when installing Lineage OS. But, you know, it's nice to have an extra alternative to Android. And of course, it's completely free. So as long as your phone model is supported, just go ahead and you can do it. And of course, you have access to Android apps as well. So why not, right? And yeah, guys, that's it. That's Lineage OS. And if I were to compare it to the other new phone operating system I have, which is Sailfish OS, I think between the two, they're both good operating systems. Sailfish OS, it definitely looks more fluid and more sleek. So you can see it has very clean design. Both of them can run Android apps, which is important because if it couldn't, then I don't think most people would be using it. Yeah, Lineage OS is basically, to me, Sailfish is more different. Like this is a very different operating system than Android. Whereas Lineage OS, it is Android, right? It's just Android with a few more features on it. So you can, for example, like this, you can't do this on stock Android, just the widgets and stuff like that, right? So if I try this on my Pixel phone, like I only get preferences, and that's it. So there's a few extra features that Lineage OS offers compared to stock Android, but it is essentially Android, whereas Sailfish is a very different operating system. For example, like this, just changing wallpapers, I can do that on the fly on Sailfish, and obviously you can't do this on either stock Android or on Lineage. You can't just change wallpapers like that. Yeah, Sailfish is just a very different operating system that can run Android apps, which is really cool. Whereas Lineage OS is basically an enhanced Android. So anyways, guys, that's it. That's Lineage OS running on the Essential phone. And yeah, if you guys are interested to try an alternative to Android, or you care about privacy, you want more customization options for Android, then I do recommend checking it out. But be aware that there might be a bunch of gotchas when installing the operating system, as I ran into. So I would definitely do some Googling first before doing that. Actually, just one minor complaint about upgrading the Essential phone to Lineage OS, and this is pretty specific to the Essential phone, but now when you charge it, there's just a normal charging indicator now. There's nothing special about it. Whereas before, when you charge the Essential phone, when it was running Android 10, there was this little coffee cup charging indicator, which was really cool. I like that coffee cup charging indicator. So that's just a minor complaint, but I did notice that Lineage OS made the charging indicator kind of icon here a little bit less unique. And that's kind of a letdown. I prefer the coffee cup charging symbol. But yeah, that's just a minor nitpick, I think. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching.